What's really important to me, and what I will always do for an honest review of any wearable tech, is put it through its paces and look at the data points. So what I've done is, over the last few weeks, taken the Ring Conn out on various tests, and now I wanted to show you some of the data points of the Ring Conn Generation 2. So I'm now going to be looking at the data points between the Ring Conn Generation 2 and the Garmin Fenix 7. Now on the right hand side, what you will see is my VO2 max and my heart rate zones. So why this is important, when I look at this gives you an indication level of my level of fitness. So for those of you who don't know, your VO2 max is basically your body's ability to use oxygen during a run. So typically the higher the number, the more fit you are. So mine's currently around 63, which would indicate a high level of VO2 max and a high level of fitness. Just below that is my heart rate zones, just to kind of give you another indication of roughly where I am in terms of fitness. And at present, my level of fitness is really good. So the points of data that I think are useful for me to look at, and key indicators for me, are my sleep score and various points of sleep, my activities, and underneath is another level of activities when I'm just at rest or when I have a normal day. So to start off with, looking at the sleep score. So just to give you an overhead view of my basic sleep. So it's going to give you a score, the duration of sleep, your REM, your deep sleep. Now I think these are subjective points, but I think these are worth looking at. Your resting heart rate, your BPM or your beats per minute, your SpO2, your oxygen in your blood when you sleep, and the ability for your body to carry oxygen in your blood, and your HRV, your heart variable rate. The way your HRV is important, it is a level of indication of your overall heart health. Now HRV measures the beats in between the beats of your heart. Now broadly, and I will caveat this, whereby I will say I would seek medical advice, always go and speak to your healthcare professional. I am not medically trained, so I would always advise you to go and speak to your healthcare professional. So with your HRV, broadly speaking, the higher the number, the healthier roughly your heart is, and the lower the number, this could indicate a problem. Now just because it is low a couple of times or maybe over a short period of time, this does not indicate that you have an unhealthy heart. This could just be because lots of stress or other key impacts. So it's always really important that you do speak to your healthcare professional if you are concerned. Then underneath, what I like to do is compare, for example, the duration of any activities that I do, the distance, to see when you record between a ring and how good that is compared to a Garmin, your average heart rate, and for example your calories burnt during an exercise, for example. So we're now going to start off with the sleep. So in terms of my sleep, we're going to look at an overall score of 92 to 88, which is roughly there or thereabouts. So these next four indicators I'm going to talk about are a really subjective. So sleep, the actual time of sleep, 7:24 to 7:34 hours of sleep, which is there or thereabouts. So it really does depend on the detection between the ring and the watch, and they are roughly equal or there or thereabouts. Same with your REM sleep. So this really, again, does depend on the detection of the watch and the ring, and it's there or thereabouts. And that's the same with the deep sleep. So just as an initial indicator, between a less expensive, smaller wearable fitness ring that's a really small and really light, compared to a more expensive, bigger censored, sport-centric health watch, I'm really impressed with the comparables between the data. Now this is where I really look at the data, and these are key points for me, as we've already said. So we have our heart rate at rest, which is 39 to 40, which I think is phenomenal. Some other rings I've tested, this has been vastly out, but I'm really pleased to say that the Ring Conn Gen 2 really does match up to the Garmin. The oxygen in the blood, 98% to 97%. Again, this is roughly thereabouts what I'd expect to see, and I'm really glad that this is comparable. Now, the heart rate HRV, this is where it can get subjective. So I would expect, and this goes for both the Garmin and the Ring Conn, for my heart rate, roughly, I am a good level of fitness, I would expect it to be around 60 to 65. Now, the good thing I will already say here is that this is on the upper level of that. So as you can see here, this is very subjective, and without real tests, you know, you're never going to get it accurate as you possibly can. So the fact that this is 90 is a little bit high, and 75 again is verging on a little bit high. But the fact that these are higher above that 60 and not on the low side, knowing where I am in my fitness, I'm quite happy with that there. And as I say, it's a very subjective, but it's nice to see again that a small fitness device like a Ring can match up there or thereabouts with a more expensive Garmin Fenix 7 watch. We're now going to be looking on a day where I didn't really do a lot as such. I did walk a lot in this day, as you can just see here with the steps. When we are looking at the steps, again, very comparable. One of the things I have tested with other rings is that, again, because of how it captures the data, these can be really off, but I'm really pleased that these steps, again, are quite comparable. Looking at the average heart rate, I think this is fantastic. Again, looking at some of the other devices that I've worn or seen, this is where the rings start to fall down, really, is this everyday heart rate. So the ability to be able to measure your heart rate, average heart rate on any given day, I think is quite a subjective and difficult thing to get right. I roughly know my Garmin information. I've been wearing this now for over 2 years, so I'm kind of quite pleased with the information that comes out of that. And the Ring Conn definitely keeps up with that, and I'm really pleased with that. So the calories burnt, these are the kind of calories kind of burnt activity wise. And looking at the data here during a point in the day, so I've just picked a point halfway through the day just here, and I'm pleased to say that the calories that were burnt roughly halfway through the day are there or thereabouts. And then looking at the full day, including active and inactive on both these days, and the total calories for the day come out to roughly about the same. So this is on the 25th of June. Now on this day I did quite a long run, about 19k. So let's take a look at an active day. So on the 25th of June, it's randomly taking a day. Now I know on this day I did about a 19, nearly 20k run. So again, if we look at sleep scores, the duration of the sleep on the 25th, as you can see, the sleep there is slightly out by roughly about an hour. But again, this could be any number of factors. Again, looking at the data that I think is important to me, the resting BPM, the SpO2, the blood oxygen level, and HRV are all there or thereabouts and really accurate. Now for me, this is fantastic. I really am pleased about how accurate this Ring Conn Gen 2 for the data that I need, that I think are the most important data points to me of an indication of health, are roughly there or thereabouts. Looking at the activity itself, which was a run of 19.8k. So if we look at the distance at the bottom there, now there is a disparity because the Ring didn't link up with the Google app and did not record the distance. So as you can see, there is a disparity there. To counteract that and to caveat that, if we look at the actual data recorded during the run, so the actual length of the run between what's recorded on the Ring Conn here, 125, and the Garmin of 124 is highly accurate indeed. So the heart rate on average, I cannot understate how fantastic this is. So lots of other wearables I've worn, including watches and rings, cannot get anywhere near the Garmin. Now, Garmin for me, again, you can have this as a subjective point, but I roughly know after wearing the watch for 2 years where I am, and I trust the Garmin. The fact that this Ring Conn can record and actually for a whole run come really close to the Garmin, I think is fantastic, and it's not a typical thing that a smart ring or smartwatch can do. Again, we have the calories burnt, so I always look roughly about halfway through the day to see where I am on the calories burnt, which are pretty close, and then we look at the total calories burnt for the run. Ring Conn is slightly higher than the Garmin, and I can tell you for why that is, and the amount of steps. Now, on this particular day, I noted this down because I knew I was going to talk about this, is I had to come home and charge the watch. So the disparity there between the calories and the steps is simply because I had to take off the watch and give it a charge. But I'm really pleased to say that I estimate that would have roughly been about the steps and the amount of calories burnt.